refashioned. It will be reset with diamonds belonging to the late Queen Elizabeth II, themselves rich in symbolism, but importantly, without the considerable baggage.
The clasp catches the light first. A photographer's flash bounces off it, and for 1/2 second, the diamonds throw a pattern across the marble floor of the reception hall. Camilla, Queen, does not notice. She is laughing at something the foreign minister has said, her gloved hand resting near her collarbone, where the necklace sits like it has always belonged there. Across the room, Anne, Princess Royal, stops walking. She has seen 10,000 necklaces. She has stood through coronations, funerals, state dinners that ran past midnight. Jewels do not interest her. Duty interests her. But her eyes lock onto the piece at Camilla's throat, and her glass pauses an inch from her lips. She does not blink. She does not move. According to royal watchers who later described the evening, the Princess Royal's expression shifted from polite boredom to something colder, sharper, the look of a woman doing math in her head. The setting, the cut, the way the center stone hangs. She knows this necklace, or she knows one exactly like it. And the last time she remembers seeing it, the woman wearing it was not Camilla. Hi viewers, before we go any deeper, tell me in the comments, have you ever recognized something on someone else that you knew, deep down, was never really theirs to wear? Drop a yes below, because what happens next in this story has happened to more people than you'd think. Now stay with this, because this is not a story about jewelry. It only looks that way for the first few minutes. The reception continues. Glasses clink. Cameras keep firing. But according to commentary circulating in royal fashion spaces and online reporting, a single observation allegedly made by the Princess Royal that night did not stay in that room. It traveled quietly. The way important things move inside the House of Windsor never announced, only implemented. What did Anne see? Royal commentators have debated for years which pieces in the royal collection carry emotional weight far beyond their price. Some jewels are simply beautiful. Others are loaded. Others, according to public memory, belong to a woman the British public never stopped grieving, Diana, Princess of Wales. And here is the part that makes the air in that hall feel thinner. Anne does not gasp. She does not whisper to an aide. She does not make a scene. She simply finishes her drink, sets the glass down with a soft click, and looks once more at Camilla's throat before turning away. In royal environments, that is not nothing. That is the beginning of something. Because the Princess Royal is not a gossip. She is the hardest working member of the family, the one who shows up, the one who never flinches. When a woman like that goes quiet and still at the sight of a single object, the people who understand the institution start paying attention. A piece resembling designs the public associates with Diana, worn by the present queen, noticed by the one royal nobody can dismiss. The flash fires again, Camilla laughs again, and somewhere in the room, a private observation has already been made, one that will not be repeated out loud tonight, but will not be forgotten either. What exactly did Anne, Princess Royal, decide to do about it? That answer does not come yet, but the wheels are already turning. The necklace is back in its box by morning. The question is not, this is the part outsiders get wrong. They think a moment like that fades by breakfast. A glance, a piece of jewelry, nothing more. Inside the monarchy, it works the opposite way. The smaller the gesture, the louder it echoes. And what Anne, Princess Royal, allegedly noticed was very, very small. Which is exactly why it mattered. Understand the rules of the game first. In the House of Windsor, jewelry is never just fashion. It is messaging. Every brooch, every tiara, every necklace worn at a public event is a sentence in a language the palace has spoken for 100 years. Who wears what, when, in front of whom, Royal commentators have long pointed out that the family communicates more through objects than through words. A pin placed a certain way is a statement. A stone chosen for a state dinner is a signal. So when a piece that the public connects, in memory, to Diana, Princess of Wales, appears on the throat of Camilla, Queen, that is not an accident in the eyes of people who read these signals for a living. It is a message. The only question is who sent it, and whether anyone meant to. Now, layer in the pressure. King Charles III is reigning through one of the most delicate transitions in modern royal history. He carries the weight of his mother, the late Queen Elizabeth II, whose reign defined stability for 70 years. He carries the modern demand for a smaller, leaner, more transparent monarchy. And he carries something heavier, the public's unfinished feelings about his first marriage. Every choice his court makes is measured against that history. Camilla's entire public arc has been a slow, careful climb from the most criticized woman in Britain to a crowned queen. Royal biographers have debated for years how fragile that acceptance really is. One wrong image, one wrong object, one reminder of the wrong chapter, and the climb gets harder. Then there is the next generation, standing just off to the side, watching. Prince William, Prince of Wales, is widely described as the future gatekeeper of royal symbolism. What the monarchy means in 20 years will be decided by him. And beside him stands Catherine, Princess of Wales, a woman the public has quietly cast as the emotional successor to Diana's place in the national heart. She wears Diana's sapphire ring. She carries Diana's memory in the public mind, whether she asks to or not. So picture the board now. The present queen wearing a piece tied in public memory to a beloved dead princess. The hardest working royal who noticed. The future king whose entire reign depends on getting symbolism right. And a public that never closed the book on Diana. This is not about jewels. This is about who controls meaning. And according to commentary circulating in royal circles, within days of that reception, a quiet request for clarification allegedly moved through palace administrative channels. Not a scandal, not an accusation, just a question passed from one office to another. The way important questions always travel here.
Tennis, obviously, I love playing tennis. We've recently got into playing a bit of paddle, which is obviously new.
What was that question? Who asked it? And why did it make certain people in the palace very, very uncomfortable? The answer is closer than the palace would like. A sapphire ring sits on the hand of Catherine, Princess of Wales, and the entire country knows exactly whose finger it was on first. Start there, because it explains everything that follows. When William, Prince of Wales, proposed, he gave Catherine the engagement ring that once belonged to his mother, Diana, Princess of Wales. He said publicly it was his way of keeping his mother close to the moment. The public understood it instantly. No explanation needed. That ring is not a ring anymore. It is a bridge between a dead princess and a living one. That is the power of royal jewelry. It does not just decorate, it remembers. This is the Diana effect, and it lives inside the crown whether the crown wants it or not. Diana, Princess of Wales, became the emotional benchmark against which the modern monarchy is still measured. Warmth, vulnerability, the sense that a royal could feel things the way ordinary people feel them. When she died, the country did not just lose a princess. It built a permanent place for her in its memory, and it filled that place with objects, her rings, her tiaras, her necklaces, certain dresses. Each one became a trigger for a feeling the public never fully processed. Royal historians have explained this pattern for decades. Take an object, attach it to a person, attach that person to grief, and the object stops being a thing. It becomes a memory you can hold. That is why a single piece of jewelry, worn by the wrong person at the wrong moment, can do what 100 headlines cannot. It can reopen something the palace spent years trying to close. Now, here's the part that complicates the entire picture, and it is factual, not rumor. Most of the great jewels associated with the monarchy are not personal property in the way people assume. Many are part of the royal collection, held in trust. They are not owned outright by whoever wears them. They pass through reigns. They are assigned, reassigned, loaned, and rotated according to rules most of the public has never heard of. A queen does not necessarily own the jewels she wears. She is, in a sense, their caretaker for a time. That distinction sounds dry. It is anything but. Because it creates a gap between what the public believes about an object and what the institution's records actually say. The public sees a necklace and thinks, that was Diana's. The institution sees the same necklace and may have an entirely different story written down. A story about acquisition, about provenance, about which collection a piece belongs to and how it came to be there. And when those two stories do not match, you get exactly the kind of tension that quiet people in the palace are paid to prevent. According to commentary circulating online, this is where things allegedly grew complicated.
Symbol of humiliation, of colonial loot. It's this sort of diamond-shaped wound in a psyche of a country that is trying to still come to terms with how it was ruled over by another country.
There were whispers, unconfirmed, framed only as perception of an inconsistency in how a particular piece was tracked. A question of which catalog it appeared in. A question of whether what was worn in public lined up cleanly with what was recorded in private. No proof was offered, no wrongdoing was claimed, just a rumor of a mismatch between the public memory of an object and the paper that was supposed to explain it. And in a family where objects carry meaning, a mismatch like that is not a small thing. It is a thread, and someone, allegedly, had already started to pull it. Who? It starts with a photograph that should have meant nothing, a public engagement, a crowd, a line of cameras. Camilla, queen, steps out in evening dress, and around her neck sits the piece again, or a piece close enough to it that the people who study these things lean in toward their screens. Within hours, according to royal fashion commentary, the images are circulating with a single recurring observation attached. That necklace looks like something the public remembers on Diana, Princess of Wales. That is all it takes. Not a statement, not a confession. A resemblance. Now watch how perception works, because this is where the story turns from a glance into a wildfire. The commentary spreads. Online royal watchers compare the setting, the cut, the proportions. Some insist it is the same design lineage. Others argue it is coincidence that royal jewelers worked within similar styles for generations, and that two pieces can echo each other without sharing a history. Both sides are loud. Neither side has proof. And that uncertainty, that exact uncertainty, is the fuel, because in royal storytelling, the gap between is and looks like is where the public lives. And then there is Anne, Princess Royal. According to commentary circulating in royal circles, the Princess Royal allegedly noticed something more specific than the public could see from a photograph. Not just the appearance of the piece, but a difference in the story attached to it. A difference in how its setting or origin was described versus how she remembered it. The public reacts to how a necklace looks. Anne, allegedly, reacted to how its history did not add up. There is no confrontation. Mark that carefully. No raised voice in a corridor, no dramatic scene behind a closed door. What is described, in the rumor, is something quieter and far more unsettling an observation chain. One noticing, leading to one question, leading to one quiet inquiry, and around all of it, silence from the palace. This is the detail that turns the whole thing electric. The palace does not respond. It does not confirm. It does not deny. The cameras keep coming. The necklace keeps appearing in old photographs being reshared. The commentary keeps building, and the institution says nothing at all. In royal environments, silence is never neutral. The public knows this instinctively. When the palace stays quiet about something small, the silence reads as management. When it stays quiet about something larger, the silence reads as a wall, and walls make people want to climb them. Every hour of no comment adds another layer of speculation, another theory, another voice asking the same question. If there is nothing to address, why address nothing so carefully? Meanwhile, the Princess Royal's alleged reaction is described in a single, strange word by those passing the rumor along. Not emotional, not personal, not hurt or angry or jealous. Procedural. She is not said to have reacted like a woman wounded by a necklace. She is said to have reacted like an officer noticing a discrepancy in a record, like someone who saw not a piece of jewelry, but a process that had skipped a step. And a procedural reaction from the most disciplined member of the royal family is, in its own quiet way, far more dangerous than a tantrum would ever be. A tantrum ends. A procedure continues until it reaches an answer. So what procedure, exactly, did Anne, Princess Royal, allegedly set in motion? That is the door nobody has opened yet, but the handle is already turning. To understand a necklace, you have to understand a woman who spent 70 years making sure nothing ever looked out of place. Queen Elizabeth II did not collect jewels for beauty. She used them. Royal historians have documented this for decades, that the late Queen treated the royal collection as a tool of statecraft, not a jewelry box. A particular tiara for a particular ally. A particular brooch sending a particular message to a particular guest. Nothing she wore was random. Everything she wore was decided. This is the hidden logic the public rarely sees. The monarchy does not simply own its treasures. It manages them with a quiet system that has outlasted every individual who ever wore a single piece. And the heart of that system is a distinction most people never learn. There is inheritance, there is assignment, and there is something close to symbolic rotation. A jewel can pass to someone by right, as personal property, or it can be assigned to whoever holds a certain role, staying with the position rather than the person. Or it can move between reigns as part of a collection held in trust, never truly belonging to anyone, only ever in someone's keeping for a season. That means the same necklace can have 3 completely different truths attached to it, depending on which rule applies. It can be a gift. It can be a loan. It can be a piece of the institution itself, dressed up as a personal possession for an evening. Royal commentators have explained that this is exactly how the crown protects its symbols. By keeping ownership flexible, the monarchy keeps control. A piece can be reassigned to a new wearer. It can be loaned for a single event and quietly returned. It can be reinterpreted across reigns, given new meaning by a new generation without anyone changing a single stone. But here is where the system meets its limit. Here is where Queen Elizabeth's careful logic runs into something it cannot manage. Paperwork can tell you who is allowed to wear a jewel. It cannot tell the public how to feel about it. Because there are 2 kinds of ownership in this story, and only one of them is written down. There is legal ownership, the records, the trusts, the assignments, the catalogs, kept far from public view. And then there is emotional ownership, the claim the public feels it has over an object, simply because it once sat on a person they loved. The institution can prove, on paper, that a necklace belongs to a collection. It cannot erase the memory of whose neck the public last saw it on, and in a contest between a document and a feeling, the feeling almost always wins in the eyes of the public. People do not riot over provenance records. They do not weep over trust arrangements. They respond to memory to the image of a face, a moment, a loss. Public memory will override institutional explanation every single time, because memory does not care what the catalog says. Queen Elizabeth II understood this better than anyone. It is why she was so careful. Every piece she wore was chosen to avoid exactly the kind of collision now unfolding, the collision between what the institution can prove and what the public chooses to feel. And according to commentaries circulating in royal circles, that collision was allegedly being discussed somewhere behind the scenes. Whispers framed strictly as perception. Nothing confirmed that internal advisors had quietly debated whether a particular piece was appropriate for the current moment, whether wearing it served the monarchy's image or threatened it, whether something that was perfectly defensible on paper was a mistake. The moment it caught the light in public, no decision was announced. Of course it wasn't. That is not how this family works. But if advisors were truly asking whether a piece was right for the optics of the present reign, then the question had already grown far past jewelry. It had become a question about judgment, about direction. About who, exactly, now had the authority to decide what the monarchy should and should not be seen wearing. And that question pointed straight at a door no one had expected to open. A second office goes quiet, and it is not the one anyone expected. For days, the watching public assumes that whatever is happening with the necklace will be handled the way these things usually are, by Camilla's circle, by the Queen's own staff, by the people whose job is to protect her image. That assumption feels safe. It feels obvious. And then, according to commentaries circulating in royal watching spaces, it allegedly turns out to be wrong, because the quiet movement of interest does not come from Camilla's side of the palace at all. It comes from the office of William, Prince of Wales. Sit with that for a second, because it changes the shape of everything. The future king's household, not the present queen's, is the one allegedly paying close attention to a question about a piece of jewelry. And in an institution where every office guards its own territory, that crossing of lines is a signal, a loud one. Here is the contrast that makes it matter. Camilla, Queen, holds the legitimacy of the present. She is crowned. She is the wife of the reigning King Charles III. Her authority is real, and it is now. But William, Prince of Wales, holds something different and arguably stronger control of the future narrative. He is the one who will decide what the monarchy means when his own reign begins. And royal commentators have long described him as deeply protective of his mother's memory and fiercely careful about the institution's image. Beside him stands Catherine, Princess of Wales, steady, popular, the emotional anchor of the next generation. Where William moves with strategy, Catherine moves with warmth, and together they represent the version of the monarchy the public is being asked to trust going forward. So, when interest in a Diana-linked piece allegedly travels through William's office rather than Camilla's, it suggests something the palace would never say out loud. It suggests that the people guarding the future have decided this particular question belongs to them. The alleged sensitivity around any Diana-linked imagery only sharpens it. Different members of the family carry her memory in completely different ways. For King Charles III, the story of Diana is, in many ways, a closed chapter of history, painful, finished, behind him. For William, Prince of Wales, it is something living that must be protected, a legacy he refuses to see mishandled. And for the public, it remains an open wound that never fully healed. 3 generations, 3 completely different relationships to the same woman, and now, allegedly, one object sitting in the middle of all of them. Before this story goes further, if you believe family loyalty and protecting someone's memory can quietly reshape an entire institution, Take a second to subscribe and turn on notifications because the stories on this channel are built for people who want to understand the real machinery behind the headlines, and you will not want to miss what comes next.
Your talents, your imagination, your originality.
According to whispers framed strictly as perception, William's household allegedly made a quiet request, not an accusation, not a complaint, but something closer to a request for documentation review. A wish to simply see how a piece was recorded, to understand the paper behind the picture. It sounds harmless. A request to look at records usually is, but a request to review documentation, coming from the future king's office, about a piece worn by the present queen, is not harmless at all. It is a hand reaching quietly toward a lever of power, and the question now is what that hand expected to find. The word necklace stops being useful. Somewhere in the middle of all this, the people following the story closely realize they have been looking at the wrong object the entire time. The jewelry was never the point. The jewelry was the doorway, and what waits on the other side of that doorway is the thing every royal story eventually becomes about: legitimacy. Watch how the ground shifts. A piece of jewelry is a single object. Legitimacy is a system, a web of signals that tells the public who belongs, who decides, and who comes next. And according to commentary circulating in royal circles, that web is exactly what allegedly got tangled the moment the necklace became a question instead of an accessory. Because here is the truth about a monarchy in transition. Every symbolic decision made today quietly shapes the stability of every reign that follows. King Charles III is not just managing the present, he is setting precedents. What is allowed now becomes normal later. What is challenged now becomes a rule later. And the people thinking hardest about later are the ones standing closest to the throne's future. That is why a question about one piece of jewelry can grow into a question about the succession itself. Royal biographers have long debated how much of the modern monarchy's strength rests on optics, on getting the images right, the symbols right, the messages right. When King Charles III ascended, the entire institution made a bet that the public would accept a smaller, more modern, more carefully managed crown. Every public moment is a test of that bet. And then there is the figure standing off stage, in everyone's mind even when he is in none of the photographs. Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex. He is outside the working royal structure now, living an ocean away, but his presence amplifies everything tied to Diana, Princess of Wales, because his story is, in the public imagination, a story about her, about a son protecting his mother's memory by stepping away from the institution he believed mishandled it. Royal commentators have noted for years how Harry's exile narrative keeps Diana's name active, keeps the old grief close to the surface, keeps every Diana-linked object more emotionally charged than it would otherwise be. So now the picture is complete, and it is far bigger than a clasp catching the light. A present queen wearing a piece the public ties to Diana. A future king's office quietly asking about its records. A disciplined princess royal who noticed first. A self-exiled prince whose very absence makes Diana's memory louder. And a reigning king trying to hold all of it together. The necklace has become a proxy war. Not a war of armies. A war over three things that decide whether a monarchy survives. Authority, who gets to make the call. Memory, whose version of the past becomes the official one. And public trust, whether people believe the institution is being honest with them. Every one of those is now allegedly in play over a single object. And then, according to whispers framed only as perception, a sharper question surfaces inside the quiet conversations. Not, is it beautiful? Not, is it appropriate? Something colder and more precise. A chain of custody question. Where, exactly, did the piece come from? How did it travel from one collection, one reign, one wearer, to another? Who handled it along the way? And whether every step of that journey was clearly written down. That is no longer a question about taste. That is a question about provenance, and provenance is where stories like this either go quiet or explode. Which way this one goes depends entirely on what the records say. Someone, allegedly, finally opens a file. This is the moment the whole story has been moving toward, and it arrives without a single raised voice. No confrontation, no dramatic meeting, just paper, or the question of paper. According to commentary circulating in royal watching spaces, an internal discussion allegedly turns to a single, specific point, whether the origin of a particular piece is clearly and completely documented within the royal archives. Read that carefully, because the framing is everything. No one is said to have claimed theft. No one is said to have alleged a crime. The rumor is far quieter and, in its own way, far more serious. It is a question of administrative scrutiny, whether the records are clean, complete, and consistent, whether what was worn in public matches what was written down in private. And in the world of the royal collection, that match is supposed to be absolute. Every significant piece is meant to have a history, where it came from, how it was acquired, which collection it belongs to, whether it is personal property, held in trust, or assigned to a role. Royal historians have explained that this record-keeping is not bureaucracy for its own sake, it is the spine of the entire system. It is how the monarchy proves, when challenged, that everything is exactly where it should be. So when a rumor suggests there might be a gap in that record, a piece whose paper trail does not cleanly explain its journey, it lands like a crack in a foundation, small, easy to miss, and capable of spreading. Now place the players against that gap. Anne, Princess Royal, is positioned in this story as the verifier, not the accuser, not the avenger, the one who checks, the most disciplined, most duty-bound member of the family, allegedly treating the whole matter the way she treats everything as a process that must be followed to its proper end. She did not see a betrayal at that reception. She saw, allegedly, a discrepancy. And discrepancies, to a woman like Anne, are not gossip. They are problems to be resolved. Camilla, Queen, meanwhile, is positioned as the focal point of a misunderstanding she may not even have created. Remember, wearing a piece from the royal collection is often a matter of assignment, not personal choice. A jewel can be selected, prepared, and presented by staff. The wearer may simply be the most visible person in a chain of decisions made by others, which means Camilla could be standing at the center of a storm built almost entirely out of perception, holding an object whose history she never questioned because she was never given reason to. That is the cruelty of optics. The public reacts to the face wearing the piece. It rarely asks who chose the piece, who recorded it, who signed off on it being worn that night. The tone of all this, according to the whispers, is not explosive. It is controlled. A careful escalation, handled in offices and through documents, never through scenes. And that control is exactly what makes it feel so heavy. Loud problems burn out. Quiet, procedural ones grind forward until they reach an answer. Here is the principle holding the entire tension together. What is worn publicly must match what is documented privately. The image and the record have to agree. The moment they do not, the moment a beloved object and an official file tell two different stories, the institution has a problem that no statement can easily fix. And then comes the detail that tightens everything. According to commentary framed strictly as perception, William's office allegedly becomes informationally involved, not just asking after the matter, but allegedly being looped into the flow of information itself. The future king's household, no longer simply curious, but allegedly inside the conversation about what the records do or do not show. If that is true, then this is no longer a question being asked. It is a question being inherited by the people who will hold the crown next. Her name comes back. It always does. Not in a press release, not in an official statement. It comes back the way it always has, through the public, surging up on its own the moment anything touches the memory of Diana, Princess of Wales. According to commentary circulating across royal watching spaces, that is exactly what allegedly happens here. A question about a necklace becomes a question about her. And the country, decades later, responds like the wound was opened yesterday. This is the part the institution can never fully control. The palace can manage records, it can manage staff, it can manage which photographs are released and which questions are answered. What it cannot manage is what Diana means to the public, because that meaning was never theirs to begin with. It belongs to the people, and the people, royal commentators have long observed, never agreed to let her go. So the moment a Diana-linked object is questioned, the old feeling rises. Grief that was never finished. Affection that was never spent. A sense, fair or not, that the institution owes her memory a kind of care it did not always give her in life. And standing inside that wave are her two sons, divided by how they choose to protect the same mother. William, Prince of Wales, protects through structure. He stays inside the institution. He works to shape it, guard it, control how Diana's legacy is handled from within. For him, the way to honor her is to make sure the crown gets it right, to hold the line, to manage the symbols, to keep her memory safe inside the walls she once found so cold. Harry, Duke of Sussex, protects through distance. He stepped away, an ocean between himself and the institution, believing that the way to honor his mother was to refuse to let the machine that he feels failed her do the same to his own family. Royal biographers have debated this split for years. Two brothers, one memory, two completely opposite strategies for keeping a mother safe. Both believe they are protecting her. That is what makes it so painful to watch. There is no villain in that divide. Only two grieving sons who reached opposite conclusions about the same loss. And in the middle of all of it stands Camilla, queen whose position in the public imagination grows more complicated with every passing hour. To her supporters, she is a steady, loyal consort who has earned her crown through years of quiet service. To her critics, she remains tied to the most painful chapter of Diana's story. A single, questioned necklace forces both versions of her to exist at once, in the same headlines, in the same public mind. Against her stands the quiet contrast of Catherine, Princess of Wales, the stabilizing figure, the one the public has cast as the gentle continuation of what Diana represented. Where the necklace story stirs anxiety, Catherine's presence steadies it. The institution leans on that contrast whether it admits to or not. And here is the core truth underneath the whole thing, the insight that explains why a piece of jewelry could shake so much. This was never about accusation. It was about unresolved memory. About a country that still has not finished feeling what it feels about Diana, Princess of Wales, and an object that, fairly or not, made all of it surface again. The palace says nothing. The silence holds, and every hour of that silence allegedly adds more pressure, more speculation, more voices asking the same unanswered question. If a story about memory, loyalty, and the families who carry both moves you, share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective might be exactly what helps someone else see their own family, their own losses, their own loyalties a little more clearly, because the silence cannot hold forever. And what finally breaks it allegedly changes the rules of the next reign entirely. The rules are already being rewritten, and almost no one was told. That is how this story ends, not with an announcement, but with a quiet shift that becomes visible only after it has already happened. According to commentary circulating in royal watching spaces, the necklace question never produces a scandal, never produces a confession, never produces a headline-shattering reveal. It produces something quieter and far more lasting. It produces movement, the kind of movement that decides who holds power in the years to come. Start with the man at the center, King Charles III. His entire reign is an act of transition, carrying forward the legacy of his mother, the late Queen Elizabeth II, while steering the monarchy into a leaner, more modern, more carefully managed future. Royal commentators have long noted that his greatest challenge is not any single crisis, but the constant work of holding old and new in balance. The necklace story is just one more test of that balance, and how it was allegedly handled tells us where the real weight is shifting, because the handling, allegedly, did not stay with the present. It moved toward the future. William, Prince of Wales, emerges from this story as the figure quietly shaping the symbolic boundaries of the reign to come. If the rumors hold even partly true, his office did not wait for permission to take an interest in how the monarchy's symbols are managed. It simply began. And that is how succession actually works, not as a single moment at a coronation, but as a slow accumulation of decisions made early by the person preparing to lead. The future king is already deciding which mistakes will not be repeated. Anne, Princess Royal, remains exactly what she has always been, the institution's steady spine, the one who notices, the one who follows process to its end, the one whose authority comes not from popularity or position, but from decades of unglamorous, unbroken duty. In a story full of shifting power, she is the fixed point, the reminder that the monarchy still runs on people who simply show up and do the work. Camilla, Queen, ends this story, where she has spent much of her public life in the middle of a negotiation over her own legacy. Her place in history is still being written, still being argued, still being shaped by a public that has not fully decided what to make of her. A single questioned object did not settle that. It only revealed how unsettled it still is. And above all of them, untouchable, remains Diana, Princess of Wales, the emotional variable the institution can never fully solve. Her memory sits at the center of everything, shaping reactions, raising stakes, reminding the crown that some things cannot be filed, recorded, or assigned away. Here is the real lesson hiding inside a story about a necklace. The monarchy's true challenge was never scandal. Scandals come and go. The real challenge is interpretation control, the power to decide what things mean, whose version of events becomes the truth, and which story the public chooses to believe. That is the battlefield. And it never closes. No resolution is confirmed. No final answer is given. There is only the quiet evidence that the system has moved, that authority has shifted a little closer to the future, that the next reign has already begun protecting its own symbols long before it officially begins. Because in the royal family, the most important decisions are often the ones never publicly announced, only quietly implemented. If this story moved you, if it made you think about power, memory, and the families who carry both, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss what comes next, and share your own thoughts in the comments below, because the stories told here are built to inspire, to spark conversation, and to remind every one of us that the most powerful moments in any family are the ones that happen far from the cameras. Your voice might be the one that inspires someone else. We will see you in the next story.